What happens when the world gets turned on its head? We're forced to look inward, perhaps become fearful, sometimes lash out at others. While there are others in the world who don't give up hope because they believe in people. Join me, Kevin Tibbles, and Amy Goldberg for our new podcast, Believe in People, where we meet those who don't give up hope. Just this week, once again, we saw our world turned on its head. And it happened right here in my hometown of Highland Park, Illinois, with a mass shooting on Independence Day. Things become a little too confusing and intense. People become bitter, disillusioned, and angry. But there are others who seek out hope. Heaven knows in today's topsy-turvy world, there is plenty of opportunity to throw up your hands, be afraid, anxious, and shout, "I give up." And yet there are people out there, people just like you and me, who won't give up. People who have had plenty of opportunity to throw in the towel. People who instead find strength, resilience, and hope in others. I'm Kevin Tibbles.
And I'm Amy Goldberg, and welcome to Believe in People, a podcast where we celebrate the communities we come from and the places we are going. Today, we are going to take you to Augusta, Maine, to meet an extraordinary woman who literally makes money to give it away. Laura Benedict, Kevin calls her the Lobster Lady, runs a seafood shack called the Red Barn, where the food is as good as Laura's intentions.
Laura Benedict, my old friend, welcome to Believe in People. What is going on in Augusta, Maine with regards to the Red Barn these days?
Well, I've had to make some changes, of course. It's been a rough 30 months, but I'll be honest with you, and I can't believe I'm saying this, it's been the best 30 months of my life.
Wow.
And it's just made me a better person in everybody that works for us better. And by that, I mean, we just think more seriously. I mean, don't get me wrong. The headlines are scary. There's no question about it. People are really, really upset and they're angry at this point instead of just scared. And there's no money. And I need to make money off of people that don't have it, and even less so than ever. But it's brought out for the people that I employ, 28 of them, I did not lose one employee in all of this, and they had opportunities to go elsewhere. And I'm believe it or not, I'm learning to copy and paste. I'm learning to do
interviews,
puzzle. Yeah. And just stay and visit with the people that make me sane, which are those in the nursing homes and the veterans, and sit down and have a coffee with veterans. I would normally be going crazy, trying to control things I can't. So I think the biggest lesson for me has been that I can't do a lot about what's happening, but I can, hold my sanity and listen to, for instance, my friend Faith did jingles in the 50s. She was a jingle maker. And even though she doesn't know a lot about what's going on right now, and at times has a little bit of a dementia, she can remember that jingle that won a bike for her daughter. And they needed it most at that time. And I'm like, yeah, I got to hear more jingles. I got to hear more jingles. I got to be around the people that have been there, that know. And what I see is I see a lot of good happening in Maine, as hard as this is to believe. Where I am, the customers have never been more loyal. If they have $20, they'll drive out of their way with gas they can't afford to give the money to us. And I still, believe it or not, can do twice as much charity work because I've got the time. And it doesn't take money to be charitable. And I realize that too.
Before I let Amy jump in here, I just want to get things a little bit clear, and that is that Laura is at the Red Barn, which is a seafood restaurant in Augusta, Maine. It's a great place. I've been there. And your phrase is, the more I make, the more I give away,
Right.
the more I make, the more I give away.
Correct.
And why don't you just, so basically, you give everything you make away. So explain
And
that
still
to
do.
Amy and I and everyone else. How does that work?
The difference being, and this is counterintuitive, and that's why it's really difficult, especially now when people are scrambling naturally. And I am too. I'm scrambling. But what I do have, which is less than nothing, believe it or not, resonates more. Can you? I don't quite see you.
Yes, you're fine.
Oh, yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. So the more you give, the more you receive. And I never thought I could do. I mean, there's nothing. I have no money. I have nothing. But I have the time to sit down and hear somebody that really wants to be heard. And those people that are really, especially lately, they're lonely. I can be less lonely by keeping them company. And then the exact opposite, a lady, 95 years old, completely blind and completely deaf, said to me, I've got 1 year left to live at top. She's 99. And every day is long. Does that make sense? I'm dying and the days are longer and I have less time to live because I'm lonely. And I'm like, oh my God, if you could break that day up. So that's what I'm doing. It's not money. See, it was money before, for sure. I would take money people would give me and I'd give it back. And that's also something people can't quite understand. But now it's time. And that's what's most fulfilling, because otherwise, if I really tried to make sense of what's happening, I can't get product. I don't have customers. I don't have tourists. I have nothing except the people I've always taken care of.
Laura, where did this generosity come from?
Well, it came from, and Kevin and I talked about this, it came from born of a place where all I wanted to do was make money. I hit the ground running. I stopped going to college, and I was 3 years and a half into college, and I wanted to run my own restaurant because I wanted to make money. And that was it. And that's not, again, I was only 19, so that's pretty typical. And then I ran right head on into $100,000 in debt at 19 and a half. I owed the IRS 5 bankruptcies, a divorce, lost 2 stepkids, and I'm still here. And I just realized making money was absolutely not something I was ever going to be good at. In fact, nobody could be worse at making money than me. And then I just decided, that I would open the doors and give the food away. I had a random order that was dropped on my lap, and I couldn't afford $1,100 to file for bankruptcy. So I was too broke to go broke. That was December 11th, 2011. And then a food was dropped at my door, and I opened up the doors and I gave it away. And people just started coming. It was donations only. And I managed to raise $500 for 6th grade class. And they went to Boston. And I saw what that did to them and how excited they were and how participatory the community was. And how pissy I wasn't because I was not, focusing on my not having anything. And it took me out of my own self, my own head. So when you sit down and have a coffee with a veteran, you focus less on your own problems. And that's what Kevin and I talked about, is the only way to stop focusing and dwelling, which is easy to do, is to take your mind off of yourself and go to somebody else. And then that 10-minute coffee turns into a 20-minute coffee, which turns into a jingle from 1951. And then I forget how broke I am and how bad it is. And if you keep doing that slowly but surely, that's where we end up, which is right here. No restaurant can endure this. These prices are unsustainable. There's no reason I should still be open. And the seeds have been sown mercifully, and people are coming with money they don't have and giving to me after my having given to them. It's really kind of encouraging.
Is that how community is supposed to work?
Yes. We're living in a time where, in my estimation, I've seen a lot. But in these last 24, 25 months, especially, I mean, I went through the grieving process. In March of 2020, I was the first restaurant to close, and I had $1 million in debt. We dig ourselves out in the summertime. That's the way every restaurant is in this state. And I couldn't open, and I couldn't pay the debt. And I was scared, and I was angry, and it was not like me. And I had time on my hands to dwell. And then I just thought about it. And I mean, this is relative, this is elementary thinking. I can't control it. I always knew what I was doing. I finally took a restaurant on the verge of bankruptcy 5 times, millions of dollars in debt. And I brought it back to life by giving to the people who came to me. And then if you can't do that, what do you do next? I mean, I was in turmoil along with everybody else. But what I did realize was that I've always done what I felt in my heart was right. And when you're pushed to the brink, like I was, with the pressures of everything else, and I couldn't go to nursing homes because they were all shut down. So what I did is I bought 5 iPads and I sent them to all the nursing homes in this immediate area. And I would talk to them via Zoom. They knew better than me, oddly enough, how to do it. And they would get all dolled up and they would think they were on television. So I would talk to the ladies and the gentlemen, and I would tell them how beautiful their hair was. And they thought they were on television. That was my connection. So I found myself, I think, looking more forward to the phone calls and the Zooming than they did. And that took my mind off of everything, because otherwise it was tough. It was tough, and it still is. But I'm navigating better because I know more. And I tuned into people from the very beginning. And if you know your audience, and I really do know my audience, then see, I get emotional, obviously, because I've paid attention. I've paid attention. Now I've got more time to pay attention. And believe me, that is going to pay the bills. And you got to tweak your business model. You have to, because doing the same thing over and over isn't going to work. And a lot of places in Maine, we don't like change. And they're keeping on doing it, a lot of places. And that makes me sad, because it's not going to work anymore. So I've gone to the people. I mean, this is Maine. We couldn't celebrate 200 years. So now we're celebrating our bicentennial. So there are parades and, I mean, small town community cohesive events, lobster festivals, fairs. So I took my house, I mortgaged my house. It's all I have. And I bought a food truck. So I have Chicken for Charity, and I take my food truck around, and I go to the people who maybe have more money on the coast, and I sell my product. And I call big companies and say, would you like an employee appreciation day? And none of them have said no. So I'm having to supplement what I'm doing rather than wait for people to come to me, which has worked in the past. I go to them, and it's exciting because it works and it's working. So that's, yeah, I've got to do something, and this is
that connection though.
Yeah.
That connection that you talked about, a connection. I mean, once again, you've got the food truck now, you're traveling around. But at the end of the day, it's your connection with people that is the reason why you're doing what you're doing. And you are still, even if it's only time as opposed to money, and time is money in America.
Yeah.
If it's only your time that you can give, you're going to be giving it.
Of course.
You're going to give whatever it takes.
More so than ever. Yeah. In fact, it's better than money. Like you say, it's what I found, this has slowed me down to the point where I realized the best part of this business has been what I've missed. I've been pretty good about having my finger on the pulse of my community and how to resonate. And then slowing down like this has made me so much more in tune with the things that I was missing before, even though I was pretty much in tune, more so than most. I remember birthdays. And I mean, this food truck, this is the thing. I got roadies. These older ladies in their 90s will follow me around the state to come and huddle under an umbrella in pouring rain just to say that they saw me. And of course, I run right out and give them a big hug, and they'll tell me about how they overcame this and their husband's anniversary. And they'll tell me all their stories because they know they can talk to me. In fact, there was a lady that came up to the window and she's at least 100. And I ran up to her and I hugged her and I was kissing on her. And I said, don't spend too much money. We're going to do this. And she's laughing and hugging and thanking me. And I walked back to the car and I went to the lady that waited on her. And I said, I got something to tell you. She said, what? I said, I've never met that woman before in my life. And it was, it's just crazy. And that's all people want is a smile. That's all. All I do is greet. I don't cook. I don't do anything. I greet. I stand there in an apron, a stained apron. And I greet people and smile. And sometimes they get out. Yeah.
How many people have you helped over the years? And how much money have you given away?
4 million. 4 million at least. It was 3.7 million before the pandemic. And now it's the best advertisement ever. I've had 250 people at all the veterans homes except Caribou, which is 4 hours north. All the veterans homes and their staff, all the nursing homes and their staff. I mean, chicken is it's expensive, but it's a product I can afford. I can't do it with clams or lobster, but I just go around and it's just that part. It's about feeding the soul, like you and I talked about, Kevin. And that's the part that makes me so, so happy because they know it's genuine. They know I'm wanting to be there. And they know that I want to hear about the Nuremberg trials. And I want to hear about, Rommel, the desert fox. I want to hear about that stuff because it's insatiable. This is another thing that's happened is my curiosity has never been more piqued about the things I thought I was too busy to hear. And that's the part that's really, 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 really exciting. It makes me a better person. And even though it's awful on some level, I can't get lobster. I can't get seafood. I'm a seafood restaurant. I don't have tourists. I'm tourist driven. I don't have the weather. I'm weather determined. I don't have any of the things I need to succeed on a fiscal level. But it's interesting. This is why I'm smiling so much, not because I'm making money, because that's not going to happen, but because I'm making connections. I know that sounds.
And you're fueled by love, Laura. You're absolutely fueled by love.
I love it. It is. And it's true. And I just say, I love people. And there's no doubt. You know what you can't do? You can't fool an old person. They're old for a reason. And to disregard that, and that's the secret, is I have 75 and up by design. I have an audience that most restaurants in particular don't cater to or don't want to. And my audience are the people that are there because they know I care. It's the strangest thing. It's not even really a restaurant. It's a gathering place. And I have seating for 400 outside, and everybody can still maintain their distances. And I have private parties, and I have plugins for oxygen and Zoom meetings. When everything was really, really, really bad, I was able to provide Zoom meetings for people with their own picnic area to themselves. It's, I make changes when I know it works. And if you know what your audience, and again, that's half the battle. And that changes. I lost all my elderly, and that's my big draw. So I went to them because I had the time.
I mean, you come from a fairly hard scrabble background.
Yeah.
This is not. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that, and then explain to me why you can still be so darn positive.
Well, I was number 9 of 10, and we had nothing. Even I knew how poor we were, and normally kids that are poor don't know. And I had an accident. I had a traumatic brain injury, so I was in the hospital. And the best part of being in the hospital with a traumatic brain injury is I was able to get Jell-O, red Jell-O. I had choice, actually, red or green. So I cried when I left the intensive care because I had to go home because I didn't have Jell-O, something so simple. And back then, it was free or reduced lunch, and we would have to wait for everybody to get seconds. And I'd go, and I had this little lady. I was nose level to those wheat rolls that they pulled apart out of the big pan. And one of the ladies would set a roll aside for me. There was no way to get chicken nuggets or chocolate milk. And I would just dream about food in particular. It was horrible. And I would dream about food. That was what I dreamed about. And when summer ended or when summer began, I cried because we couldn't eat like you do in school. And one day that I couldn't believe my good fortune is they had one box of Apple Jacks left, those little teeny boxes of cereal. And I was free reduced, so we waited. And I watched that like a dog at a windowsill, waiting. And I got the Apple Jacks. And I was like, oh my God, never had a better tasting morsel of food in my life. So now I go down the Apple Jacks lane and I'm going, I could get one of those if I wanted. And ironically, the chicken nuggets I never got. I sell 1,000 pounds of chicken nuggets a day and I can eat those anytime I want. And that's the full circle that's coming because I was bogged down in my own head. And now, and another thing, this ain't to toot my own horn or anything, but the college I stopped after 3.5 years to go into debt in a restaurant just awarded me a doctorate, an honorary doctorate for humanitarian. Can you imagine?
That's incredible. That's incredible, Laura. Congratulations.
This lady says, can I come and see you? And I said, you look familiar to me. She said, I'm Lori LaChance. And I said, oh, why does that name sound familiar? And I was racking my brain and she sat down and I went, oh, I owe the money. I never finished my college loan. I defaulted. I thought she was there to get my money. I owed about $4,000. And I went out and I said to her, I said, Lori, you got to give me a break here. I don't have any money. I'll pay you. Can I do it in installments? She's looking at me like, what? And that was just crazy. That's what's happening now, is that things are just happening because, I don't expect much. And what I do know is that good things happen to people that just really have, the best of intentions. And I've always been that way, even as poor as we were. And as much as I got teased, I went back to school. I have a plate in my head. So I had 280 stitches and I looked like Frankenstein and oh my God, kids would tease you. And it was like, it was horrible. So when somebody's teased and I see it happening, that's not a good thing for that person. I promise you, I will fight. I will fight. So not on my watch. No, it's not going to happen.
And you know how to.
Huh?
You know how to fight.
I know how to fight.
You're a fighter.
And I'm a fighter. Yep. And that's the best part because you don't see me coming. Just because I have my mother's smile and those dreamy green eyes, I will absolutely not be okay if you do something to somebody that doesn't deserve it. Because I know how it feels. And you never forget that. That's another thing. Don't forget.
That's what's made you what you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really think, and that's the way a lot of people are that are good-hearted. But I had every reason in the world. There were 10 of us, and 5 of us went one way and 5 of us went the other. And I had the good sense to gravitate toward good people. And I've still got those friends today, 53 years later.
Wasn't always like that. Wasn't always like that. You did take the low road for a while.
Oh, I sure did. And as far as drinking, oh my God. I ended up just like my dad. You could tell by the kind of day you were going to have by the way he revved the engine coming through the trees miles away, because we lived on a lake and it echoed. So you could tell how bad the day was going to be. So we never had shoes. And I would just crawl I had the strongest toes, claim to fame, in all of Sydney, Maine, because I could climb trees with my toes and get as high up into the tree as I could just to get away from it all. So I always was, of course, beat down naturally. And I hated him for what he did, and how he treated people. And I turned just like into him, more so than any one of us.
So Laura, what turned it around for you?
Well, I drank heavily I'm going to be 57, for 30 years. Never thought I had a problem. And a lot of people didn't notice until the end. So I was pretty good. Another thing I'm really, really good at is keeping up appearances. Really, really good. To the point where it scared myself. Everybody thought I had it all together until I got home, and all I had was a drinking problem. And then it got to the point where, okay, I couldn't even keep myself steady. Everybody knew, and I didn't realize to the extent that they knew. And then I went home one day and I was like, I can't do this. I wasn't sleeping. I was spending money crazy. I sat down. The best news I ever heard. Here's the best part. I went into rehab. I voluntarily went. And as soon as they put that wristband on me saying, you're going to stay, I panicked. And then I pretended everything was okay, right? I went back into that survival mode. So I had this thing on, and finally 3 days into it, lady comes bedside manner aside. She says, you have a dual diagnosis. And I'm looking, yeah, right. Now one isn't bad enough. Typical, right? Everything I have is over the top bad. And she said, you have bipolar 1. Apparently there's more than one kind. And and a drinking problem, right? Alcoholism. So I said to her, I'm sitting Indian style on the bed. And I looked at her and I said, what's bipolar? And of course, now we know more about that than we did. I do anyway. And she tells me what bipolar characteristics are. And I started to cry, and she said, it's going to be okay. And I said, you have no idea. I am crying because I am so happy that there's a name for it, that it wasn't, that it's actually something that I can cure, or at the very least understand. And then they put me on medication. And of course I tried that, a few different ones. But when somebody tells you that what you're feeling can be understood, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was the best thing I've ever heard, is the diagnosis of bipolar. Much more. The alcohol wasn't the biggest issue for me. I didn't know that. But so I started talking, and I've still got my therapist today. And it was like, oh my God, don't get me wrong. It's been rough, but at least there's a name for something. At least there's a diagnosis. Yeah. I really didn't know for my whole life. See, if I weren't as tenacious and fierce, I would have collapsed decades before. But that's the part of my father I had in me, is that I was really, really, really good at going in the wrong direction and holding it there. Yeah.
Before we let you go, it's just been so inspirational talking to you again, and hearing that you're still out there and you're still doing the good work that you do. And our series is called Believe in People, and and Amy has one more question to ask before you let you get back to the food truck.
I do, Laura. We want to know, our viewers and listeners want to know, why do you believe in people?
I believe in people because that's all I had. I didn't have anything. And when here's the deal. There was a lady, her name is, I hope she hears this. Her name was Manon, Manon. She just came in from Canada. They moved. She didn't know any English. So she didn't know anybody and didn't know the language. And I went up and I sat with her and taught her how, some dirty words too, but taught her how to speak English. Isn't that something? I could actually teach something to somebody. And she was able, and all I did, because I felt it is in keeping with your question. When you find you have something to offer, then you build on that. And today, she says to me, I said, I remember how your house smelled like chocolate chip cookies. I remember that smell. And she said, weren't they the best? We're talking 50 years later about something so simple as hello. And I felt so good for being there because she needed it. And I didn't realize to the extent at the time, 50 years later, we're still laughing. We're still having, and she speaks English better than I do, by the way. And I don't know one word of French. But what makes me believe in people is that it's possible. Even if you think you have nothing to offer, you always do. You do. It's awesome when you feel like, okay, even if it's just my time, anybody can sit and have coffee. Anybody can do that. To think that they can't, or that it won't matter, is where I was for 40 years.
Laura,
I don't know.
Thank you.
Hope that answers the question. I hope she hears this. She'll love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And just good luck with your chicken truck, your lobster. and just
we'll be coming to see you again, Laura.
Save me a lobster roll for down the road.
I promise you. I'll have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Laura Benedict.
Bye-bye. Thank you.